Karen Miller here from Asleep at Last. Welcome to another one of my videos. Today I'm talking about self-settling. So the definition of self-settling, first of all, I think most people are aware of it, but essentially what it is the ability for your baby or toddler to put themselves to sleep independently and free of any associations that they may have. Much like we do, we go to bed, we don't have associations, and we're able to put ourselves to sleep. Now, babies are not born with this ability. It's something that we do have to teach. There are various methods to use to teach them this, but before we get into the methods, there are a few things that it's important to consider and have in place before you implement a method. Often I hear parents say to me things like, I've tried this, I've tried that before, it doesn't work, it didn't work, or it worked for a short period of time and then it wasn't sustainable. And this is often just because they haven't got a few other things in place before implementing the method, and one of those things is day sleep, and another one of those things is the room environment. But before I talk about those two aspects, I would like to answer another very common question, which is, at what age should you teach self-settling? Babies are not biologically able to self-settle and resettle themselves as newborns. This ability kind of tends to appear around the 14-week mark. So when their sleep changes, very often they go through a sleep regression, and this is where they are then able to learn to self-settle. Now, that doesn't mean that they will just start doing it from 16 weeks themselves. Often what happens is by 16 weeks they have associations because you have been cuddling them to sleep, feeding them to sleep, as you do with a newborn. But then these associations can stay for the duration of their the first year into their second year even. So if you're wanting to get rid of those associations and you're wanting to teach your little one to sleep independently on their own, that is where you would choose a settling method. And like I said, from about 16 weeks onwards is a great time to do this. You can do it at any age. It can be a bit harder with older children just because they can protest that little bit more. That said, the temperament of your baby always comes into play as well. So I always say to my clients, choose a method that suits the temperament of your baby. Some babies are more stimulated by parental presence than others and need a bit more of a less of involvement from the parent. Other babies are a lot more attached and more clingy and need a more gradual approach. So the method that you choose will depend primarily, I would say, on the temperament of your baby as well as what works for you as a family. So in terms of the things that I touched on earlier, so the things that you need to consider before you choose a method and you implement it, and the reason why a lot of times when parents do this on their own it doesn't work is because they haven't actually implemented a good day structure around sleep. So if your child is getting too much sleep or they're not getting enough sleep, they're not biologically going to be tired enough come bedtime, and the method that you choose won't work. It doesn't matter what you do. If a baby is not sufficiently tired, they won't sleep at that time. So it just makes the whole process easier if you're on top of their day sleep. So look at age appropriate awake windows, make sure they're having the right amount of naps for their age across the day. And once you've got on top of that, then I would implement your chosen settling method at bedtime. The other thing to consider is the room environment. So make sure that the room is dark, they are in a suitable TOG rated sleep bag, that you're using white noise, and that there isn't any distractions or anything too stimulating in the room like cot mobiles or anything too much on the walls, that kind of thing. So be mindful of the room environment as well. Once you've got those things in place, then you can start thinking about choosing a method. In terms of methods, the phrase sleep training is something that I don't tend to say because I find that it puts a lot of people off. It has a lot of connotations to cry it out, which obviously can be very controversial. I personally don't use cry it out with my clients. If that works for you, then that's fine, that's great. But I think, yeah, the term cry it out is often associated to control crying, and it isn't. It's a completely different thing. And so I try and refer to these methods as sleep settling methods. And there are lots more methods available other than just cry it out. So a lot of times people, I think, avoid teaching self-settling because they do have it in their heads, because for one thing or another on the internet it's been blown up that if you're sleep training, it means you're leaving your baby to cry on their own until eventually they're so exhausted they just fall asleep. You're teaching them that you don't respond to their needs, which again is simply not true, because if this were the case, then babies would then stop crying when they didn't feel well, or they felt, or they were scared. They would no longer cry out, and that isn't the case. They still cry. Once you've used a method, they will still cry. They will still use their way of communicating to let you know that something is wrong. The other method obviously is controlled crying. Again, that's one that most people are familiar with. Lots of people get this wrong. So you can pick any intervals that you're comfortable with. It doesn't have to be sitting and waiting for 20 minutes off the bat. I recommend, depending on the age of your baby, you actually go with a small interval to start with, something like 5 minutes. And what you're looking for is continuous crying, so not on-off crying. If your baby is crying on and off, they don't need you. They're just trying to put themselves to sleep, and you need to back off and give them the space to do that. If they are continuously crying, it means that they need your help to calm down. You will go in, you will calm them down. You don't try and get them drowsy. You don't try and put them to sleep. You just calm them down and reassure them, and then you leave again and you start the timer again, and you're looking for continuous crying. This method I find works for parents who are able to tolerate some crying and they want a quick result, and also for babies who are too stimulated by seeing their parent. They get more angry and more worked up by seeing their parent. I find that this method works best for those kind of people. Other methods are more parental presence, so that means either staying with your baby or toddler for the duration, or popping in and out, or using touch or using voice sporadically to do that, or picking them up sometimes, or just patting them, that kind of thing. There's a few different methods, and again they will depend on the age of your baby and the temperament of your baby, and what other associations they've had prior to you settling them to sleep. So what is the association you're trying to get off them? And yeah, those methods require you to be a bit patient. They can take quite a while, up to 2 weeks of consistency. You do have to be consistent, and obviously it requires a lot more of you, so you do have to be willing to kind of put the effort in, and it can be quite tiring because the baby, you'll need to be with them a lot more, but they do work and they are really effective, even for toddlers that have never gone to sleep, for example, without a feed, or having a huge association to a dummy or a bottle or to a parent. These other methods do work in kind of, you're basically weaning your baby or toddler off you, essentially, over a period of time, to the point where eventually they realize that they no longer need you to go to sleep. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Obviously there is a lot more to these methods, and when I work with clients, I give them all the information on these methods, so they have all the facts about them and they can choose which one works for them. Teaching self-settling really is the key to getting your little one to sleep better, because it teaches them to consolidate their sleep. So if they go to sleep on their own without any associations, without needing you or anything to put them to sleep, they will then be able to put themselves back to sleep when they naturally wake up after one sleep cycle of 45 minutes. If you don't do this, you'll end up with a baby or toddler that needs you to put them to sleep, that then needs you again every 40 minutes during the day for naps, and every 2 hours through the night. So if you're struggling with those kind of wakes, and you really want to get on top of them and want to see your baby sleeping through the night and napping sufficiently and not catnapping throughout the day, then you really do need to choose a settling method, be consistent with it, follow it through, and just in the space of 2 weeks you will have taught them to sleep independently. So if you like this video, please hit like. Remember to subscribe to my channel for to be notified when I've got more videos added on. Please join my free Facebook group for advice and support as well, and I will see you soon. Thank you.